Well, hi everybody, and welcome to our first video in a series I'm calling Wine from 200 Vines. Who hasn't ever thought about the idea of making their own wine and running their own vineyard? But it all just sounds a little bit too big and a little bit too complicated. So in this video, and in a series of videos, I want to talk about how do you make wine from a small vineyard. That way you can get all the enjoyment of the wine, but not on the grand scale that you would normally associate with a vineyard. So here's our little vineyard, now a year old. And what I want to try and do in this series of videos is take you through what we've done to get from bare earth all the way through to here, and as we move forward into the future, right through the process of winemaking. Now, there's one overarching question that we've had, or that's come up really during this process for us, and that's the question of scale. This is a small vineyard, and there are some fundamentally different things that we would do to a commercial vineyard that's maybe running 40 hectares or 40 acres under vine. So that's been the thing that we've learned, and it's a key element of the whole series that I'll be talking about probably quite a lot. But in this video, I want to focus on the fundamental questions that we asked before we even put a vine in the ground or dug a hole. Which is, well, why 200 vines in the first place? What does that mean? So it means asking, how much wine do we think we want to make? What varietal do we want to plant? By varietal I mean, is it going to be Merlot or Shiraz or a Spanish variety or an Italian variety? Which clone of that varietal are we going to plant? Because there's different clones and they grow at different rates and can grow better in some regions than others. Then the question of course is, do we plant more than one type of varietal? In other words, do we do a red and a white? Or do we just do a red? Do we just do a white? Do we do them grafted or non-grafted? And the last question is, do we do them irrigated or non-irrigated? So I'll take you through those questions and what we've come up with as answers to get to this point.
Okay, so why 200 vines? Well, the first thing is to estimate how much actual grape juice we're going to get from our planting. Now, if we do a conservative back of the envelope calculation, we can say that one vine will give us at least 3 kilograms of fruit. Multiply that by 200 and we get 600 kilograms of fruit. Then we can do a conservative yield estimate on that, which if we say we're going to get 60% of the weight in juice, 600 kilograms of fruit will yield 350 litres of wine. Now that's very important because the question that we're really asking here is, are we going to be able to fill a barrel or a barrique? Now a barrel's bigger than a barrique, so do we have at least 225 litres? Yes. Do we have more than 320 litres to fill a barrel? Yes, we do, if we're at 350 litres. So the take-home message from this back of the envelope calculation is that our 200 vines will give us 350 litres, which will fill a barrel and conversely a barrique. Now the second set of questions was around choosing varietals and clones. And the basic question most people would ask themselves is, do we plant a red or a white? And that's a very good question. But there's another way to look at it, because rather than saying we want to do a red and a white because we like reds and whites, when you're doing a small vineyard, a really good way to look at it might be to do a single type of varietal, a single varietal. Now, for example, from a red wine type, you could make both a red and a rosé. Now, that is something that most people may not have thought about. And remember from our previous calculation, from our yield, we may want to fill a barrel. So we need the volume of wine to one day fill a barrel. So the take-home message here is, guess what? We can make 2 wines from the one varietal. That's a really important thing to consider that you may not have thought about before. Now, in terms of choosing the varietal, that's a really difficult question to answer, which comes down to the clone as well. And the best advice I can give is speak to local growers, speak to the vine nurseries themselves if you'll have one. Someone will be growing these things for you. And choose forgiving varietals. And by that I mean that there are some varietals, and Tempranillo is one, for example, that can be quite temperamental to actually make a quality wine from as an amateur winemaker. Whereas your Shiraz Merlot, and a number of the French varieties are quite easy to make. Like, for example, Cabernet Franc, which is Cabernet Sauvignon's poorer cousin, if you like, is typically not oaked. Now, that could be an easier wine for you to grow, a grape for you to grow, but also an easier wine for you to make, as an example. So the basic advice I would give would be grow what grows well in your region. And the last consideration that we had is, how do we maximize growth and minimize water? In the days of global warming, we really don't want to be using any more water than we have to. And this comes back to this scale question. So a commercial vineyard might say, to get enough volume to make us commercial, i.e. to fill enough bottles, we need to irrigate, we need to get big fruit. Now, when you're not a commercial vineyard, those aren't really major considerations. What you're really trying to do is really fill that barrel. Or at least try and make the best wine that you can make. So the types of questions that were put to us was, do we use a grafted rootstock? And why would we do that? Well, it could suit our region better. So, for example, a vigorous rootstock could go down and get the water from a deeper level in the ground. Also, a grafted rootstock might help the vines establish faster. And of course, what we're really trying to get at is minimize our water use. I don't really want to be irrigating unless I absolutely have to. Which brings us to the question of irrigated versus unirrigated. So again, it's this scale question. A commercial vineyard will typically irrigate, but we don't really want to, and we don't really have to. We only want to water when we're establishing the vines. That's critical. The first couple of years, 2-3 waters, we will want to water. As time goes by, we will want to water in extreme heat. But what we're really not worried about are getting lower yields, which leads to getting better fruit, which hopefully makes our wine better. So while the grafted rootstock will cost us more, so my vines cost about $8 each, which doesn't sound like that much, but when the non-grafted ones are probably around the $2 to $3 mark. So this is a higher cost, but a better outcome for us, we think, because again, it's a smaller scale. 200 vines is worth paying a bit extra to get grafted ones, which will lead us year upon year from a scale perspective to hopefully make better wine. So after all that calculation, we decided to order Sangiovese. Now Sangiovese is a varietal, an Italian varietal, that grows very well around this region. This region is well known for its Shiraz and its other French styles, but Sangiovese was something a little bit different, which we thought would set us apart. Now, we can make 2 wines from our Sangiovese. We can make a full-bodied red at some point in the future, but we can also make a rosé, or a rosato as I would say in Italian, which is the same thing. So we've ordered 200 vines of the Sangiovese. Now we've ordered what they call a MAT 7 clone. We were advised by the vineyard or by the nursery to order that particular one. It should make a very classical style Sangiovese. Now that's actually going to be grafted in our case, grafted to what they call a Richter 110 rootstock. Now that's a very vigorous rootstock, and it should give us good penetration into the soil and get that moisture up, because remember, we've decided to go non-irrigated, except for establishment and occasional hot day watering. So in my next video, I'll be taking you through the preparation of the paddock to becoming a vineyard, from soil preparation through to the capacity to plant. Because we ordered in May 2018 for our vines, and those were planted out 3 weeks ago in October 2019. That gave us over a year to prepare the soil, which was also a recommended thing to do. They said, don't buy your vines and plant straight away. You must prepare the soil to maximize survival and to get fantastic deep root penetration. So I hope you like this video. If you like all my videos, please subscribe. And if you've got any comments or questions, please leave them below, and I'll see you next time.